Hey, this is Notser, and we are doing 0.5.5 patch preview. Usually I skip this 1-minute countdown, but it's raining. Look at the rain. It's beautiful. There's cloud cover. The camera has a little bit of water that hit it. And if you didn't tell me this was Land of Fire, I wouldn't really feel like it. It's so much darker and bluer than the usual Land of Fire. Usually Land of Fire is yellow, orange, red. Very bright, very warm. But the weather has completely changed the tone of the map. Now, the weather itself is pretty random. I've only played 2 or 3 matches where I noticed the weather was different. And I kind of want more. I wish it was in every match. I understand that they're testing to see how often something happens. They don't want it to be dark as night every day, and they don't want it to be super stormy. That would get really dull really quickly. But we're going to head forward. We're going to see how successful we are. There's a couple more things they've changed. As you can see, the player lists have a white background now. They've shortened some names. For instance, the Admiral Hipper is now just Hipper, and they've done this with a lot of ships that have really long names. The Carolinas, a couple of the Soviet cruisers. You get the idea, and I don't really care one way or the other. The chat box is a little bit different. It appears they have a slightly different shade of green for the name of the player versus the message that they sent. And I can't put my finger on it, but I think they changed the entire design of the chat box, just barely. Oh yeah, you can actually scroll up now. You see the scroll bar on the left side of it? That's useful. I thought that should exist since day one. Okay. Another little thing that they adjusted, the range indicator for your primary guns, or your torpedoes for that matter. It appears that it is a fixed design now. The original version would just be a dotted line around the ship and it never rotated at all. But you can see as I wiggle back and forth my bow that the dots are actually moving sort of like a clock. So maybe they're in the process of creating a UI that scales. Please do this. I cannot tell you how annoyed I am by the lack of scaling. I would love to play this in 1440p, but the UI is just too small. It's hard to make out items, and I know 4K is even worse. You might as well not have a UI with 4K. And so far, there's a couple other things I've noticed. They've added the velocity of the shells, both the HE and the AP for the main battery, and I really appreciate that. However, that doesn't tell the full story. For instance, let's just see. This is another thing that they added. You can notice that the shells appear very differently. Yes, they now have an actual model that represents the ammo in flight, and it looks great. We had HE loaded, and in that instance, I would have preferred AP. I felt like he's going to come out, show his side, and I missed the opportunity for that first strike. We do get a little bit of damage, but not enough to really gauge the shell. So I just have to be careful, showing my side, of course. It's the Pensacola, right? It's not an ace pilot ship. And a couple other changes they made. It looks like the smoke, I don't know if it's having a spiral effect, but the trail is more defined, most definitely, on the shells. And I really appreciate that as well. I don't know if the guns are more accurate, but it looks more controlled. It feels good. And we see an enemy firing on our position, and it sort of shows the ammo or the shell right as it gets close to you. I'm sure they do a swap in. They don't want to have to render all these shells at extreme distances where you wouldn't see it. There, oh, that's nice. We, of course, angle against it, and we're pretty healthy. Now, I don't believe they've changed any values as far as the way armor works. But, oh man, look at these shells. They look so cool. Oh man, it just looks so cool. It really does add to the effect. And as someone who makes use of that effect a lot of times as a presentation device, I know some of you are, oh, why do you do this? You can't see. It's for the benefit of the channel. I do like watching it as well. I would probably not enjoy the game quite as much if they didn't have the camera to follow the torpedoes or the shells. I think that's part of the presentation. But it really does help you get an idea. Now, it doesn't look like the ships make contact with the shells yet. It sort of looks like they just go through each other. And I guess that's okay. But it would have been nice to have a little bit more physicality when the shell makes contact. And I'm sure that's probably down to server. Oh man, he's perfectly broadside. We should be able to kill him right here. Don't pass it up! Oh, this looks good. Oh yeah, it's good. Now, notice when the ship died, its name turned to black and then it faded out from there. That's a change. Oh, by the way, everyone dies really slow now, which is great. If you can't appreciate a giant hunk of metal going to the bottom of the ocean, then what can you appreciate? And we're getting citadels left and right. This feels great. Oh, that Yorck did a great job there. I should have had better angling, but we didn't. Now you notice the weather's gone. That's how the map seems to progress. It's not a constant. At least I haven't run into a situation where it's like raining all the time. That would be interesting. And the enemy has definitely pushed us back on the eastern side of the map. There's just no way we've got an enemy battleship, enemy cruisers. I don't think the destroyer, yeah, the destroyer is in the western side of the map, but they have an advantage, a clear advantage. This enemy Amagi is about to come around, and for whatever reason, he doesn't have an upgraded hull. They only cost 1 XP. You telling me you can't spend 1 XP on a hull? Whatever. Enemy Yorck is engaging us, but it's not going to hit us. It just hits right next to our ship. And yes, this enemy Amagi keeps moving forward. We're trying to get a waterline shot with a citadel, and it looks great. Can it actually deliver? Now notice when we do damage to the target, the icon sort of blinks. The ship icon, just pay attention, it will blink as a response to that damage. I don't know if it's your damage, your division's damage, your team's damage, but I've only noticed it when I'm doing damage. And we get a citadel at that angle. Wow, that's really bad luck for that Pensacola. But to be fair, we're pretty low as well. I don't see any way that we're going to survive this. But it was a pleasure just to try and do as much damage as we possibly can. Funny enough, I enjoyed the Pensacola when I played this match. I was like, wow, this feels great. Of course, back when I played the Pensacola, way back when, I really wasn't going for AP at a broadside target. Oh, nice. So I was using HE in more scenarios when I could be taking advantage of that AP. The HE just doesn't stand up to the Japanese HE. And I don't know if it's in this game. HE does a little bit of weird effect. I'm sure you've already seen it if you have any interest in the game. We're telling our friend, good job on the Yorck. Now, that Pensacola, okay, well, he appears to be holding off. Maybe he wants to move past the island. I am interested in seeing him. Come on, Pensacola. Oh, I think he put out aircraft. He's angling away. Can we predict he's going to fire on our position? No, he actually fired on a friendly. Okay. This should be free damage. Free damage. Are you serious? What? It just... Come on. Now he's angled too much. We can't pin him. We have to switch back to HE if we have any hope. And I'm taking damage from something. They miss me, thankfully. Man, it just feels so accurate. I don't know if it's supposed to feel that accurate. Yeah, you saw that little flash. And overall, I feel happy with the changes they made to 5.5. I don't feel like it's reinventing the wheel. It definitely feels like a different game with all of the different animations that they've added. Oh, here we come. Is this going to be a fire? I would love to show off a fire. Nope, he misses completely. I have another match that I'll show off, which will have a little bit more discussion. Ooh, that enemy battleship. That was rude. And we finally give up on AP. We switch to HE. He's just not willing to show his side. And I'm hoping I'm hoping I can kill him with a front salvo, because I don't want to show too much of my side to the battleship. He will end me. Well, he's probably going to end me either way. And yep, the Pensacola, he has to deal with the island. We're able to get a little bit of damage. Not enough to kill, though. Will a friendly get him? And, oh, wow. Every shot missed from the battleship. Come on, don't let this guy get away. Fire, fire. We're going to watch this go in. Oh, those shells, they just look so glorious. There we go. The enemy Nagato has to deal with the island. We have a little bit of time that we can hide. Hurry! Hurry, hide. I'm going to just try one little cheeky shot just as I go behind the island, and we do absolutely nothing. Wow. This game has been awful. We have not been given a single opportunity to get close to the capture point at all. I've just been trying to deal with all of the cruisers, all of the broadside, and I don't want to die, right? Yeah. We should definitely have HE loaded. This is just bad. Oh, come on. Yeah, we decided to switch to HE, of course. Those shells, they look so good. It's definitely going to improve my presentation. I'm probably rare. I don't know. I don't have time to watch anything else. But I assume most people don't follow their shots in like I do as often. Oh, there we go. 5K. We also set 2 fires, and it's not going to... Well, I don't think it's going to happen in this game. It should happen in the next game. Fires have an interesting effect. I'm just going to call it interesting. It's definitely new, too. And I did notice that there is a setting to turn it off, because it is one of those effects that will cause you to either go insane. Oh, no. Why did you fire on me? There was no reason to do that. And as our ship slips below the waterline, we're going to move on. This is the map Trident. It's a brand new map. I don't know exactly where it's supposed to be. We're in the Yorck because I saw the velocity and was like, oh, it's so much better than the Pensacola. No, it's not, because there's another stat that controls the arc of the shell. And yeah, it's still the Yorck that I just love to hate because the shell velocity is so slow. Here's the fire effect. You are not seeing things. My screen is on fire. It's really weird, isn't it? And I believe it scales based on the number of fires on your ship. Also notice, I'm running with alternate mode on. I have extra information, but it no longer tells me how much time is remaining with a flood, a fire, or a torpedo incapacitation. Usually that information would be right over the icon if you had the alternate mode enabled in the menus, but it's not there. Clearly, it's not there. Now, if I had to think like a developer, how can I make people use damage control more often and be a little bit more vulnerable? Well, I could give them less information, maybe less precise information. Remember that all of these variables change based on the ship. Some ships take really long to put out fires, like I believe Soviet cruisers take longer. Some ships take really, really short amount of time, and this is before you have skills involved. You have to consider that. If I'm in a Soviet cruiser and I just know inherently that it takes a minute to put out a fire, I'm more inclined to use my damage control against a fire than if I were into a ship that took 30 seconds to put it out. Now we're going to engage our counter because he's evil. He's got red on his shoulders. I think we missed. Yep, we missed. Oh, the shell velocity. It's so bad. I just can't believe how bad it is. But as far as Trident is concerned, there are a lot of islands, both north and south, and it's pretty much symmetrical. Anyone trying to assault A, north or south, have the same advantages as the opponent. Same with B, same with C. I don't see any island inside of the objectives, so you're not going to be able to hide while you're capturing. They could also adjust the area that the capture exists in I believe on North they've changed it a bunch, actually. B and C are completely different than their initial incarnation. And it's healthier for the map because you can't use the trunk. Yes, the trunk to hide if you have a south spawn anymore. You actually have to risk your ship. And we land a little bit of damage. No Citadel, but 5,700 is pretty good. Come on, just kill this guy. Don't let him get away. I think we did a good job. I think we led... Oh, the shells, they just look so beautiful, don't they? It's just such a better looking game with these little changes they make every single patch. We get an enemy trying to engage us on the other side of this island, and I was ready. I knew what he wanted to do. He did interrupt our capture, which is unfortunate. I do a quick check. He appears to be coming to a complete stop. I also put my aircraft in the sky to also scout. I do that little peek, and then I line up with what I believe is the water line, and he came to a complete stop. He's now backing up. I let him a little bit too much. I predicted that he was moving slow and he would continue out west. That's not what he ended up doing. He's actually in full reverse, and I don't know how we avoided that. That's awesome. He's in full reverse, and we're gonna try and get him. Looks good. Oh yeah, it's good. The enemy cruiser is gone. Please, please don't go out of the cap, Notser. Full stop. Oh, of course. Torpedo bombers. I don't want to take that. Oh, I'm still committed. All right. I completely fail right there. And that guy that we killed earlier is still dying, I believe. I don't know what that was. Maybe it was a ship. Yeah, I think it was a ship that was still dying. Ships will die so much slower now. They'll rotate over. You'll see the bottom. It's really cool. I can't wait to see some unique animation that I just haven't seen. The friendly Colorado under attack. Not very good. A friendly cruiser gets taken out by secondary battery from the Nagato, and we have a chance to fire on him, but it's not exactly easy. The Colorado's going to take one. We're good. We're good with that, right? We're good. I would like to take this guy out. It would be so wonderful if we could land anything on him. It looks like he's turning north. He's trying to take out the friendly aircraft carrier. The friendly aircraft carrier, okay, well, he died. I wouldn't expect on a public test server that anyone knows what they're doing. And it looked that way. He had plenty of opportunity to run away. He just didn't. And we're going to overshoot a little bit. We did a lot of damage to his command tower. And I want to lead plenty. Now, the binoculars, that's one thing I haven't talked about. The binoculars have 8 or 9 sets of different measuring devices that you can use. They definitely have come from the community. They look just like mod. I personally prefer the original. There's just enough information on the screen that doesn't feel like it's overwhelming. So they've got 8 or 9 static images, and you will recognize them. You can't change anything about those particular static images. They also have a dynamic binocular view where the measurement changes based on the zoom level. And as someone who plays at max zoom level, that does absolutely nothing for me. Maybe it is something you're interested in, because if you like to try and fire at a battleship with a max zoom, and then you transition to a more smaller zoom for destroyers, well, the max battleship is only going to go up to 10 or 15, whereas if you're engaging a destroyer and you don't use any zoom, or maybe one variant of the zoom, you just roll your middle mouse one time, you're going to see like 20 or 30 ticks to measure on, and I don't like that. Why would I fire at near max range and not have a benefit of a full screen of tick marks? Why would that only come up if I wasn't using zoom? It doesn't make sense to me, because you would only use a normal binocular view, 1 times versus 5 times, if you were engaging a destroyer. You're not going to try and engage a battleship at max range. There's no reason to have up to 30 or 40 tick marks at that point. You're not going to lead that much. But it is nice that it's dynamic. Maybe it's going to allow for more customization. I don't know. It's something easy you can change in the menus. You just go to the third tab, I believe it's controls, and it's just a new button that you have. It shows you probably 6 or 7 different maps and their color palette. Some of the binoculars work better on other maps. If I were to go to Islands of Ice, maybe I change to a black binocular versus a white. I know for me personally, it would be hard to pick up on shells for the map Islands of Ice because of all the white. Same goes with the names, same goes with the binoculars, but I would say the binoculars are the least important aspect of it. I could pick those up pretty good. It's the shells that were just a real issue. I don't know if it'll be better with the changes. I have not played on Islands of Ice since these new shell animations, so we'll have to see. Now, the predictable location for the enemy aircraft carrier is probably behind that giant island. It's basically guaranteed that anytime you're going to be on Trident, the aircraft carriers are going to try and hide in that little gap. You can see both the north and the south have that. As an aircraft carrier, I would say go ahead, hide behind that. I know you want to do that. I personally wouldn't use that as a location to hide from. You're isolated. There's not a lot of room. Maybe a aircraft carrier, maybe another cruiser. They can't be there to protect you. So I don't know if that's the good spot to hide. Obviously, this is test server. Who cares? But for the live version, there's going to be aircraft carriers that are going to hide behind that, and you're not going to have any real knowledge except for maybe a destroyer, maybe aircraft. You might have to save it and see. The flood icon was there, but I had no indication how long it would take, even though you can see the travel time of my shell and the distance. I have all of the information that they will give me enabled already. So they have willfully taken away the time that you're going to be under a flood, fire, or incapacitation. We'll see. I don't like taking information away from the player, but if it makes it a little bit more exciting, then yeah, maybe it is necessary. Maybe it is a good change. They're probably just going to try and take the stats and time it out themselves. Maybe a mod will keep it. I don't know how you... If you take information away from the vanilla game and it exists in a mod, I think that's unfair. I don't think that should exist in the game. If that is allowed. If a mod is allowed to time it out, I'm sure the information exists. They're just not displaying it. So the mod will clearly know exactly how long it's going to take. And I know from my experience with World of Warcraft, if you have dot timers, it's a huge advantage. It's a huge advantage over not having dot timers. And that's basically what all these incapacitations, these floods, these fires, it gives you a good idea of how long you're going to take damage. And there's a lot of instances, like my game in the Fletcher yesterday, where I would not really know exactly how much time I have before I'm dying. This aircraft carrier is trying to run the border. The game is basically over. Trident's interesting. I think it's a small map. At least it felt small. That means that battleships will be forced to be closer to the action. That could be good for us, or that could be good for the battleship. I'll have to see. I don't particularly care that it's small. I think large maps allow for more passive play, so maybe that's the direction they're going with these maps, to try and get people excited, get people involved in fighting. And the game's not spectacular. It was on the new map. I wanted to share it. I hope you enjoyed the preview. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.